So for our next Quest Wednesday, we are looking at toxic and healthy relationships. It's a very juicy theme. What initial ideas and thoughts do you have around that, Adé?
It is a juicy theme, and what comes to mind for me now actually is there used to be a time of my life where I was in a lot of toxic relationships, intimate relationships, and friends, and sort of friends as well. And the reason I know that they were toxic was I wasn't being that best version of myself. I wasn't sort of being in a space of aligned with my values. There'll be some friendships or relationships that would end. I'd walk away feeling this stickiness, this sense of I didn't bring my whole self to the table. So for me, healthy relationships are relationships where I feel this sense of joy. I feel this sense of all of me is welcome into this space. There can be ups, there can be downs. In fact, there will be ups, there will be downs. But there's always this sense of just being very, very close to my heart in those relationships. So for me, it's a feeling, it's a knowing, it's a sense of how do I feel when I'm in it and how do I feel when I'm away from it. And that sense of groundedness that I feel or don't feel when I'm in those relationships. What about for yourself? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I like the word, in a way, I kind of like the word toxic because it's a metaphor, isn't it? When we think of toxic, we think of poison. So I think about a toxic relationship, it's very helpful because I think of, if you have a glass of water, I've got a glass of water here. If I was to just put one drop of poison, the whole of the glass becomes poisonous. It doesn't need the whole glass to be poison. And so I think in a toxic relationship, it's about, there's something foundational that's that in the dynamic that is not healthy. It could be one little drop. It doesn't have to be. So in some ways, my toxic relationships in some ways looked okay. They looked like a glass of water, but within that water, there was a little bit of poison that made it toxic. And then when I think about that metaphor with healthy relationships, it's like, it's not poison that's put in the glass, but sometimes with a friendship, an ingredient could be added, which doesn't really go. It's like too much sugar or too much salt, but that's, you can live with that. You know, relationships are not all perfect. So a friendship can be, you can have good and bad days, but it's not toxic. So the glass tastes very nice, but it's not going to kill you. But a toxic relationship is lethal. And I think that definition is quite helpful. And it helps me to identify where was that happening in my life, you know, because I did have relationships that were toxic. And actually, what were the beliefs driving that toxic behavior? What was going on in the dynamic that made that so? I think that's something I'm curious to find out more from the session, actually.
Wow, I'm loving it. I'm really looking forward to the session now. Great stuff.
Yeah, me too.